corruption.
Domestic violence, fraud, money laundering, and reneging on a term limits pledge, State Representative Robert Goforth of Kentucky aspired to higher office and ended up in the hoosegow. Robert Goforth started off okay, or at least it looks that way on paper. Born in 1976 in East Bernstadt, Kentucky, Goforth graduated with a Doctor of Pharmacy from the University of Kentucky and spent 2 years in the U.S. Army. But then he turned to politics. Goforth was elected to the Kentucky State House in 2018, and the young legislator immediately challenged incumbent Governor Matt Bevin in the 2019 Republican gubernatorial primary election. He did surprisingly well, taking 40% of the vote. But in early 2020, things started falling apart. In April of that year, Goforth was arrested and indicted in September on charges of first-degree strangulation and one account of assault in fourth degree for physically assaulting his wife. His wife said Goforth grabbed an Ethernet cable from a kitchen drawer, wrapped around her neck while she was face down on the floor, and strangled her to the point where she was having trouble breathing, according to the citation. Goforth's wife said she didn't want to pursue prosecution against him. Goforth pleaded guilty to fourth-degree assault, but the strangulation charge was dismissed. Being an incumbent, he still won re-election in 2020. A year later, he was convicted of fraud. Goforth pleaded guilty, admitted that a pharmacy he owned in Clay County billed Medicare and Medicaid and other insurance programs for prescriptions that customers didn't pick up. Then the medication was put back on the shelf and sold again and again and again, according to the plea agreement. Interestingly, Representative Goforth signed the U.S. Term Limits Pledge to co-sponsor, vote for, and defend the resolution for Kentucky to call for the Term Limits Convention. This is the official application of Kentucky to call for an amendment writing convention under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution that would be limited to the subject of congressional term limits. He used this pledge in his election campaign, and the popular stance surely was chosen to maintain this ambitious politician's profile at the state level. Goforth went so far as to promise to be the lead sponsor and introduce the Term Limits Convention bill. Surely he'd seen the recent polling that 96% of independents, 85% of Democrats, and 82% of Republicans in Kentucky supported this reform. However, after promising to take on the role of the chief sponsor, he, at the behest of House leadership, refused to proceed with the term limits resolution at the last minute, making it impossible to find a new sponsor for the 2020 session. His challenge to Governor Bevin over, the election over, he didn't need this issue, and he reneged on his pledge to voters. The Term Limits Convention was dead in Kentucky for another year. His term limits betrayal was his first scam as a Kentucky legislator, but it was not his last. It was only a few months later that he attacked his wife, and throughout this period was, according to his own admission, been defrauding patients and insurance companies. For his pharmacy scheme, Goforth earlier this month was sentenced to 2 years and 1 month in federal prison for healthcare fraud and money laundering. Additionally, Goforth will have to pay $2.7 million in restitution for the fraud and $10,000 in fines. After 2 terms in office, term limits scofflaw Representative Robert Goforth will spend his next term in prison.